Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for the delay, just some technical issues, but we are here live and ready on tonight. And so we ask that you would do us a favor and go ahead and share on tonight to all your platforms. Send some folks some text messages. Even if they don't have Facebook, they just have to go to www.facebook.com/Free2Prayz, and it will take them directly to our page. Let somebody know really quick that we're live. We're not going to be long tonight, but we're going to be powerful. So we ask that you will go ahead and share as we do the same to our platforms. And we will be with you in about 5 seconds. So let's go ahead and share. Well, tonight we are so glad to be in the house on tonight, and we're glad that you have decided to join us as well. We are getting ready to go into our new series, and I am going to let our coordinator of Secret Place, which is our counseling division here at Free2Prayz, he is going to join us tonight and be our presenter. I will let him present his series on tonight and what we are going to be discussing. As always, Free2Prayz is a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit, and we believe in serving the community with uncommon solutions. Feel free to check out our Facebook page as well as our Instagram page. We are just honored to be a blessing to the community at large, and we're hoping that you will help share our posts so that we can touch those in many places. At this time, I present to you Dimitri Clanton. He is out of the state of Michigan, and he is our coordinator of Secret Place. Dimitri, it is in your hands.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And I just want to thank everybody that's joining here tonight. You could have been anywhere else, but you're here with us to kind of get some knowledge. I know if anybody remembers, maybe it was a couple of years ago, I kind of talked about grief and different diagnoses. I kind of wanted to switch it up this year and kind of focus on relationships. So I will pull up my screen here in a second, but kind of want to give you all a little background about where my mind was at. You know, I think I always say like I'm in a season of growth, meaning that the obstacles that we face in life and the things that we have to overcome, it's not so much that it's hard or it's difficult. You have to phrase it differently in that positive mindset to be in a season of growth. But my idea with this series, I call it the relationship series. So there will be 2 more series coming here pretty soon, and I'll share all that good stuff towards the end. But kind of want to give it a background that I was in the spirit, and I feel like it was on my heart to talk about relationships. And it's important to talk about relationships because we deal with them every day, whether we're out and about in the communities, we're doing it in our work, our family, our spouses, our kids. Relationships is an avid part of our lives, and it's so super important to hone those relationships. But the most important thing about relationships is developing a relationship with yourself. So please give me a minute while I bring that up, and we will begin. So like I said, thank you again for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to chill here with Free2Prayz, and that's always a blessing. So as I stated before, it's really about developing a relationship with yourself. And it's important to do that because we have to deal with ourselves every day, whether that's, from the time we wake up, from, midday, we have to deal with our own emotions and everything that we go through. So it's super important to develop a relationship with yourself. So when we think about developing, learning to love yourself, you always ask yourself, what is the first step to doing that? What does that look like when it comes to learning to love yourself? At a very young age, some people are introduced to love in a positive way. Some people are introduced to love in a negative way. So for those who are online, I want to kind of do a quick exercise. I like to call this exercise a grounding exercise. For the first maybe 2 to 3 minutes, I want you to recall the first time you were introduced to love. Now, you can think back as far as you can, or when you felt like it was something positive to you, even if it was a negative experience. I want you to take some time. So if you're here right now, I want you to close your eyes, kind of get into a meditation space so you can think about what's really going on here. So recall the first time, recall the first time you were introduced to love. So take 2 to 3 minutes, close your eyes, and we'll come back here in the next 2 minutes and then we'll kind of discuss what I mean by that. So take your time, no rush, but definitely want you to close your eyes and get into a meditation space. And don't worry if the silence is awkward. Silence is a good thing. It helps your mind think. So I'll be quiet and let you all meditate for the next 2 minutes. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing for one quick second. So kind of focus. Okay, awesome. So if you're still thinking about it, that's perfectly fine. But this exercise is to really get your mind to bring it back, to think about the first time that you fell off. Oh yes, if we got some comments, if you would love to comment, please do so I can explore your mind, explore your comments. Grandmother, awesome. So grandmother. So for the person that did say grandmother, how did your grandmother introduce love to you? What did it feel like? What was the feeling like? Can you remember, were you over her house? Was she cooking some good food? Um, where were you? So as we get the comments going in, I'll kind of go in depth of why I'm asking that. When you're first introduced to love, that's the foundation of how you were taught, right? That's the foundation of, okay, well, this is how I was introduced to love. So this is how I'm going to love myself because you got a blueprint and you got a standard. So it's really important to think about why that is. So I say where you were because when we think about life and we think about our positions in life, we think about love, there's always a certain sight, certain scent, a certain environment that triggers that emotion or that memory. Because during times of obstacles and hardship, it's just good to reminisce on what we had in those memories. And I say, do you remember the feeling? Because you can grab to that feeling. Memories are forever, feelings are. You can grab to that memory and put you in a positive mindset, in a positive space. And then I asked, was it a person, family member, significant other? Was it something else? People talked about God, talked about children, because that sets the precedent moving forward, right? When you think about how you were introduced to love, it's really like your foundation, your blueprint to say, well, this is how I want to be loved. This is how I want to love myself. And this is how I want to relay love to my children, to my spouse, to my God, etc. So that's super important. So thank you for participating in this. But it's really important to think about how you were introduced in love. Now, for those that want to comment on maybe if you had some negative experiences, because sometimes the introduction to love is not necessarily a positive thing all the time. Sometimes it can be introduced in a very negative way. We know that there in society, there are some things, especially within the Black community, when it comes to secrets and generational curses that can introducing to love is not the way that you should have been introduced to love. So even if you had a negative experience, I want you to think about that too, because that could have steered you left when you should have been going right. And that has, that's not your fault at all, but it was based off your experience and your first introduction to love. And that's super important. Check the chat. Awesome. So grandmother, I was awesome. So yeah, and hopefully, your grandmother gave you a positive experience, and hopefully that you felt love, and you like, okay, well, this is what this feeling is, and it helped you through life. So I'm going to pull my screen back up again and kind of go more in depth on this. So when we think about love, most people think about the peaches and cream, the great things about it, the beautiful thing about love. But there's another thing, like I like to call flaws. And what does one consider to be a flaw? And as you can see, I have internal versus external. Internal, you think about the values that you hold within yourself, your personality, your self-doubt, your mental health, your depressions, your anxieties. Everything that we hold within us is internal. When you think about external, we think about our self-image. Do we value the way that we look? Do we value the way that we present ourselves to the world? Do we have to be perfect? Do we have to have the best clothes? Or materialistic? Do we have to smell nice? Like, what about our outside do we want people to see? Or do we doubt ourselves? As you can see, self-doubt. But you can see internal, external is interchangeable because they mesh into one. What you feel inside can portray what you look outside. What you look outside can portray what you feel inside. You always hear some of the saying that a person may not be attractive, but they got a good personality, and that makes them look beautiful. Or you can say that person is beautiful, but their inside is not so nice, and vice versa. I wanted to say accepting your flaws. It's a beautiful thing about flaws. In our society today, we are taught to be perfect. We live in a very competitive society, whether it's applying for a job, applying for college, or if we have sibling rivalry, it's always some type of competition going on. And when you have that in your mindset, that means that you have to have no flaws and you have to be perfect. But learning to love yourself is also accepting the things that you don't like about yourself. There's in whoever's online right now, just by a show of hands, or if you want to comment on the chat, and I'm going to put my hand up too, some of the things that you may not like about yourself, and I include myself in that same category. And whatever that thing you don't like about yourself, I encourage you to embrace it. I encourage you to lean into that flaw, because that's what makes you beautiful. That what makes you the person that you are. Flaws, we were taught at a young age that flaws was something to look as if it was negative or it was ugly, when reality is beautiful. Gonna stop sharing for one quick second, make sure I can respond to some chats. So when we think about that, I want you to take some time to think about some flaw that you may have, and why do you feel that that's a flaw? Were you told that was a flaw? Did society tell you that? Was it something that you heard over and over again? It was like, well, maybe this is not a good thing to be, or maybe this is a flaw of mine. And that's where it brings you back. You see, I'm tying things together. That's when it says it brings you back to, how were you introduced to love? When you are introduced to love, that comes with the positive, that comes with the negative, that comes with everything that you feel. Everything that you feel when it comes to love and flaws, it comes from a foundation. It's just, as our faith goers, it comes from God. Our foundation comes from God. And some people get introduced to God at a very young age, and some people get introduced to God at an older age. But that love that God shows and gives us is so abundant, and it fills our spirit. So that's why it's important to think, what is your flaw and why do you think so? It's important to embrace your flaws. Don't hide from them. Don't shy away from them. Embrace them. And knowing what our flaws are, sometimes when it comes to love and flaws, it comes with trauma. I know most of us have been through some difficult times in our life and been through some traumatic experiences. And sometimes our trauma can shape who we are. It doesn't define who you are, but I would be lying to you if I didn't say it didn't contribute to the person you are today, whether you're overprotective, whether you may not show love right away because you're not as trustworthy to other people. So it's always important to think about where things started, where things started, how things started, and why. So when we think about love, we think about flaws, we think about trauma. All that when you were first introduced to love, whether it was positive or negative, if it was negative, then that means that's a traumatic experience that you had. And some people may not look at love in a positive light. Like, yeah, I did love once, or someone did show me love, but then they betrayed my love. They betrayed me on the ultimate level. And that can be very difficult. So I think that's very important to think about. Hope you guys in the chat. Yes. So something, constantly struggling accepting. So it's a battle. Because one day we could feel like, I'm the finest brother, I'm the finest sister in the world. But then something happens. And that's where I go to in details about those, the triggers that you may have, the inconsistency that you may have. And it's a battle. It's a battle every day, looking yourself in the mirror and looking at your flaws. And sometimes your flaws can be deep within, deep within your soul. And that can be very hard to manage. Super important, struggling with the opinions of others. And that's also, I'm glad you brought it up. Another topic I wanted to touch on is opinions of others. At a very young age, I was taught not to care what people think, but eventually it gets to you. I'm not going to lie about that. But when it comes to opinions of others, it's really like, well, how do I view myself? Because if I view myself in a positive light, if I accept my flaws, whatever a person may say will not faze me. And I think that's important to think about when it comes to that. Okay, so let me get to the next slide. Super important. Struggling with doing things different from how my circle and family believes things is still being loved. You know what? I had a great conversation with my father today. And then I'm just gonna let people know I'm very personable and I share, some of my personal life when it's important. I think this is a perfect example. I had a great conversation with my father today. We talked about about relationships and about men, especially within the Black community, Black men. It's so hard for Black men to be vulnerable. It's like I need to either, keep things to myself, or I need to have certain men around me that I can feel that I can confide in. So when we think about struggling with different things in our life, especially when it comes to men, it's about who do I go to and why do I go to? But I definitely want to come up with a different series with that. But I wanted to touch on that because this conversation I had with my father today really opened my eyes and inspired me to not only come up with these potential series and more series that I'm going to come up with, but it really put things in perspective to me how important relationships are in life. Because we have a short life and it's important to harness those relationships that we have. My flaw is seeing the good in people when they are point out in the bad. See, people are so quick to point what's wrong with you. And that's because they're insecure about what's going on within them. And that means that they have to heal. And it's very important to say, and that's the thing, I think it's a beautiful thing to see the beauty in others, although people are forever maybe point out the flaws in you. But the blessing is that, but God's gonna bless you with that. When you stay optimistic and positive, because it's hard to do it, right? It's hard to do the right thing all the time. It's hard to do the right thing when no one else is watching, when there's no cameras on, there's no one to put a show on. It's just you, your thoughts, and then it's God. But God's always watching. So I want people to put that in perspective. It's important to think about, although this person may be calling my flaws out, I'm still going to see the best in you. Although you may not see the best in me. Trust. Trust is a big thing, guys. When someone betrays your trust, it it takes so much time to build trust up, but it takes a second to tear it down. And it takes twice as much to even get there. And the thing about trust is that when you trust someone, that means you trust them with your whole heart, or you trust them to be around them, etc. And I think the important thing about trust is that although trust can be broken so quickly, people make mistakes. There's no denying that. People make mistakes, and sometimes it takes time to get up to that second level. But thank you guys for putting that in the comments. It's very well needed. And I also want to touch on the woman aspect too. Had another conversation with my mom too, um, and she put some things into perspective when it came to my personal relationship with my wife and understanding it from a woman's perspective. Like I said, I never thought about that way. It's being open to change. Like I said, I'm in a season of growth. It's being open to change. It's allowing yourself to put your pride aside. And that's where that love and foundation comes from. When you truly love someone and you love them with your whole being, you want to do that best to not necessarily make them happy, but to understand them, to understand their point of view and why they may feel a specific way. And I think as men, we struggle with that with our wives or our sisters or our mothers. But it's important to take a step back to realize, okay, why do I think that way? So thank you for all those comments. I'm gonna share my screen again. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, there we go. And as you see, this last slide before I wrap things up is knowing who you are, self-evaluation, understanding who you are through trauma and healing, taking accountability of who you are. So as you see that I talked about earlier, I talked about trauma. I talked about healing. Well, I didn't talk about healing. I talked about trauma. When we think about self-evaluation, we think about taking accountability of who we are. No one knows us better than us. We know what makes us tick. We know our certain triggers. We know who we are. And sometimes it's difficult to look yourself in the mirror and say, this is something about myself I need to work on. Whether it's anger, it's anxiety, it's depression, whether you're disconnected with family members, maybe you've been a bad person prior to, but that's the one of the first steps to healing is taking accountability of the things that you've done, not pointing the fingers, not trying to blame people for what they done to you, but more so saying, you know what? I have to know who I am. I know that I'm a person of love, but then I can get angry. I know that I would give my shirt off my back, but I know I'm a protector and I will do anything to protect my family, sometimes by any means necessary. You have to know the person that you are, the root of you, the cause of that. And that's super important. And I say understanding who you are through trauma. As I stated before, trauma can tell a story of who a person is because you can tell certain things if a person is very reserved, if they don't want to speak, if they don't connect with people easily. That's kind of red flags and indications that that person's been through trauma. But then you say, Demetri, well, how do I heal? How do I get through my demons? How do I, if I have a problem with loving myself, how do I learn to heal, forgive myself, love myself, and heal in the same process? And I tell you, there's no perfect way to do it. There's no blueprint. There's no specific way to do it. What I tell people, when you go through things and you're struggling with loving yourself because of the things you've been through, the experiences that you had, embrace the trauma, embrace your demons. And people may look at me funny when I say that because no matter how quick you run, how fast you run, how many times you try to ignore the demons that you have within the depths of your soul, it comes out some way, right? It's just like the pores in our skins. I'm a strong avid believer that our demons pour out of our skins. Our trauma pours out of our skin. Eventually your body, and that's why our body and our temple and our mind is a beautiful thing. Eventually your body knows what that is. It respond it respond it responds to trauma. Your body knows when you've been through trauma. Your mind knows when you've been through trauma. So healing through it is confronting your trauma, confronting your demons. And that looks different for everybody because your demon could be a person, could be a place, could be a thing. Your trauma could be a person, a place, or a thing. And sometimes you may not be up to facing that person, or that person may not be here for you to face. So this is where our faith comes in, and we give it to God, we give it to Allah, and we say, we say our prayers and we do what we need to do to get through it. But the first step is embracing your trauma, embracing your demons, and not being afraid, not shying away from it. The only way to heal is to face it, work through it, develop those positive coping skills. You're not alone. Lean on your family members, but also, I am a trained therapist. There's nothing wrong with talking to a person to work through those issues. So it's super important to look at your life and say, what are some things I need to work on? So that's kind of the end of this presentation, but I really want you all to think about, if you didn't get anything from this presentation, I want you to think about how to heal, how to face your trauma. If you're struggling with loving yourself at times, think back to when you were first introduced to love and then start to build from there. But at this time, do we have any questions? It is open to questions, and I am ready for questions. Yeah, Charmaine said it right. Your trauma can't control you. If control you. It can consume you. It can consume you if you let it. And bearing it, you know, it causes repressed aggression. When you repress things, it comes out eventually. And sometimes we take it on the people that we love. Sometimes if you're married or if you have a close friend or a family member, you may curse them out. But your trauma may not have anything to do with them. But they are getting the brunt of it because of the repression that you've been feeling. So it's super important to ask yourself, okay, what's the source of my trauma, the source of my pain? How come I don't love myself? Is it because I went through something? And sometimes our memories are so repressed, you may not remember it because our body and our mind was trying to protect ourselves. But then it can be a certain trigger, it can be a certain sight, a smell that triggers it, and all those emotions that you thought that you buried or got rid of, they come back up again. And that's the important thing about working through some things in life. What if you're not ready to face your demons? That's very, very true and very important, very valid. You will never I'm not going to say you'll never be ready to face your demons. You have to get to a point in your life where if you want to heal, you want to be a better you. And let me phrase this and say this carefully. You're not trying to heal because you want to be a better husband or a better wife. I'm saying be better for you. Don't do it for anybody else. Because if you're a better you, you will automatically be a better husband, a better wife, a better sister, a better friend, etc. When you do it for you. Too many times in our life, we put others in front of ourselves. And when you constantly do that, there's nothing else for you to give to your own self. And that puts you in a depressive state and not allowing it to grow. So if you're not ready to face your demons, that's okay. What I encourage you to do is to write down the pros and cons of facing your demons. Ask yourself, what may be your fears? Why are you afraid to face your demons? Is it too traumatic? Is it something you don't want to revisit? Ask yourself the hard questions, and then you will start to navigate through it. It's really about taking your time, writing the pros and cons, giving yourself the grace to feel that pain. You got more questions? So, speak of loving yourself. How would you start the process if you've been down on yourself for so long? That's a great question. Giving yourself grace. That's the beautiful thing about forgiveness. Forgive yourself. You are human. If God intended for us to be perfect, then none of us would have issues, wouldn't be sad. Like if that's what he intended us to be. But God made us flawed. He understood that the beauty of flawless doesn't mean that you're ugly. That means that you're human, that you're going to make mistakes. So if you are having a hard time figuring out where to start, I want you to start with the source. What I mean by the source is think back. Where did the trauma start? When were you first introduced to love? If it was a negative love or a positive love, start from there and build up. How do you handle trauma that was caused by individuals who aren't physically here any longer? That's very tough to do. When someone inflicted trauma on you and they're no longer, of this earth, like how do you get that closure? That's when you lean on God. First, you forgive yourself, and then you forgive that person. Now, I'm going to hit some nerves on this. People always get upset when I say you have to forgive the other person. They're like, what purpose does that serve? And I can tell you, it's not for them. It's for you. For those that are still in the physical and still living, they live in their best life. They're not bothered by what they caused, the hurt they caused to you. Forgiving them frees you. Forgiving yourself frees you of that hurt. Now I'm not saying that it's gonna be easy or it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna take time. You're not gonna like doing the hard work because it takes hard work to face your demons, face your trauma while trying to love yourself at the same time. How can you continue to lift yourself up so you can lift up others? And I'm gonna say this. I think it's super important to be selfish. And I smile when I say that because they're like, "He's selfish." Like, what does he mean? Like, Dimitri, what do you mean by being selfish? Sometimes you have to worry about you. Sometimes you have to love yourself, be your biggest cheerleader. If you're a type of person that gives and gives and gives, and you don't feel that reciprocation back, that means that you're not pouring enough into yourself. Allow yourself to be selfish. What I mean by that, go on dates with yourself. If there's something you love to do, if you love walking, singing, going to the movies, eating, whatever that it is that you love to do it by yourself. It's so important to get, and I always encourage people, if you have a family or if you're single, at least take an hour out the day to yourself, to your thoughts, whether that's watching a show that you love, whether it's watching a specific movie, reading a book, whatever that you love to do, take an hour out the day, at least an hour out the day to do it. And I think that's important to think about. If you can focus and build that stamina, I say the coping skill stamina and this self-care, self-love stamina. Allow yourself the peace and time to do it. Okay, what are some tips for finding inner peace? Ooh, that's a strong question there. Inner peace. I challenge you to ask, what does inner peace look like for you? What does that look like? Inner peace looks different for everyone. For me, inner peace is when I've accepted who I am, understanding that I'm continuing to grow to be a better man, understanding that I'm trying to reach a different pedestal. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to build my relationship with God. And if I can give my troubles to God, if I can fully trust in Him and understand that the path that He's put me on, whether it's bad, whether it feels uncomfortable or not, that's inner peace for me. When I know that I've tried my best and I know and I'm trusting in God to guide me the steps He ordered. So you have to, for inner peace, is understanding what does peace look like for you? Does it incorporate loved ones in your life, or does it incorporate you finding inner peace within your own self? What happens when you ask for forgiveness and the individual refuses to accept? Super powerful. Everybody is on their different healing things. So say if you did something wrong and you like, I said sorry and I did that. Some people are not at the same level you're at. You may be at the point to where you want to move on in your life and you're trying to seek that forgiveness, and that person that you may have done wrong, they're not there yet. The best thing you can do is to love them from a distance, allow them that grace, that the hurt that they may feel. You have to allow people to feel their feelings too, even if it hurts. Even if you want to reconnect with that person and build a new relationship with that person, allow that person to grieve and to get their pain out. And it's going to be challenging. I'm by a show of hands, I know plenty of people like, well, I did somebody wrong. I apologize for it, but they still don't talk to me. They still won't accept my apologies. And I'm going to be honest. Sometimes they may never accept your apology, but at least you know that you've forgiven yourself and that the forgiveness that you're seeking is genuine. It's not an ulterior motive. It's not like you're trying to get over or you have a hidden agenda. It's more so like, hey, I feel really bad for what I did to you. I forgive myself for it, and I pray to God that you've forgiven me. There's been many situations where we've done people wrong and people have not forgiven us. And that's okay. They're in their right to do that. But the best way to handle it is to love them from a distance, allow them time. In certain circumstances, people come back and they say, like, hey, I wasn't ready to accept your apology or your forgiveness, but God's been working on me. And God told me, has ordered me to forgive. Yes, alone time is super important. And I know as husbands, as wives, as entrepreneurs, we live in a society where they tell us to go 20 full speed, 24 hours a day. And I think that's not a good idea. Allowing yourself to have self-care, allowing yourself to meditate, will it resets you, right? After a long day at work or a long day being a husband, a father, a wife, a friend, a confidant, uh, a pastor, a preacher, like all that, allow yourself to love on yourself, right? Allow yourself to love on yourself. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So allow yourself to love on yourself. It's super important for people to take the time off for themselves. And like I said, number one thing for me is self care. If you can't take 15 minutes, at least to an hour to self care, then you're not doing it right. That's not me judging or not me criticizing. I always encourage people at least take time off for yourself. As I said before, if you're constantly giving to people, whether that's your job, your family, what you're supposed to, but if you can't give to yourself, then you won't be no good for your family. So I always encourage people, rely on yourself, love on yourself. And I also want to put this out here. For those that do have families and are struggling with finding inner peace or finding alone time, give each other space. If your spouse, say if your spouse doesn't come home right away and they're not as lovey-dovey, right? They come home and speak like, hey love, hey babe, how are you? Had a long day. I need some alone time. Give your spouse that chance to get space. Give each other grace to reset. Because if the wife can reset and the husband can reset, if they can have their alone time, then y'all come together and then talk about it. One thing I took from my marriage counselor was the 24-hour rule. And what he talked about was focusing on only those 24 hours. It's not about what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday. It's not what's going to happen tomorrow, but let's focus on today. Let's focus on today. So many times we're so like, okay, well, I know I have this to do tomorrow, or I know I have to think, X amount of months, but sometimes we get lost in that and we get into routines and it's just going through the motions. That 24-hour really helped me and my wife say, you know what? I see you, love, and I see the struggles that you maybe have today. How can I be of service and vice versa? So I would say when it comes to inner peace or any relationships or just trying to find time for yourself, give yourself that 24-hour off. Focus only on today. Don't think about what's going to happen tomorrow. Whatever happened yesterday, but today is a brand new day. So I want to thank you all for rocking with me this evening. I know when it comes to relationships and it comes to traumas and demons, it can be very difficult to talk about. But you have to do the hard work. If you want to become better and you want to become more open and you want to learn to love yourself, you have to face those demons. And if you're not ready to face those demons just yet, write some things down. Write your fears about why, and even write down if you were to address your demons, what would your life then be like? Because then you will be free of them. So thank you so much for being here. If there is any more questions, you can definitely reach out to my email. I shared it. My email is my first name and last name, ClintDimitri41@gmail.com. Shoot me an email if you're not comfortable saying anything here. Definitely understand. But if you're not following our Facebook or Instagram, please do. You can reach out to me on those too. And if you know someone else that may be struggling, we're fast approaching on Christmas right now. And last time I did a series on grief and being alone during these holidays, because it's very hard when you don't have family around. So I encourage you all to do that. Yes. And we do have another session coming up in about 10 minutes. And I'm going to talk about the other. I just got to pull up my slide again so I can get to what we got coming up next. So we do have another session coming up, and I'll let Charmaine talk about that. Another session coming up at 7. We do have some more sessions coming up December 2nd. I have 2 more series, December 15th, as well as December 29th. We have a computer and mobile thing coming up right now. Nowadays, you don't know if you're getting scammed, if it's real or fake. So definitely try to tune into that to give you some insight. My final 2 series is going to be talking about mending relationships and then communication and grieving during the holidays. So I will touch on grieving during the holidays, my last session. But that's going to be my next 2 sessions. So we got a lot of things coming up. We're trying our best to meet the community needs. And if there's something that you want to hear about or you want us to talk about, shoot us an email. Reach out to us on our social medias or email so we can incorporate that. I love to hear from the community and hear from the people. And I want to talk about, I want to address some things that you may be struggling with that I haven't mentioned. And I think that's important. So thank you again for rocking with me, for taking the time to listen to me. I hope you gained some knowledge and got some comfort with this conversation, although it was difficult. But other than that, thank you again. And Charmaine, I pass it back to you.
All right, let's give it up for Dimitri on tonight. We are so happy that he has blessed us on tonight. I don't know about you, but I was certainly just taking all the nuggets in. And certainly as we begin to start a new year, we are excited that we're going to walk into that new year empowered. We're going to walk into that new year motivated and inspired, not to just build businesses and build visions, but also to build us, to empower our own temple. And so we are very excited for all of you. We're so thankful for all of the feedback, all of the questions that you have put forth, and we're excited to see you in the future as we continue to drop these nuggets to you. Just in about less than 8 minutes, I want you to go back to our Facebook page, directly on the page, and our director of professional development will be closing out Career Month. Her topic tonight is So You Think You Are in Shape. That topic alone right there should catch your mindset. So you want to go ahead, get you some popcorn, get you a drink, come right back in at 7 o'clock, and we're going to jump in to her conversation. She did a series, and so tonight is the wrap up of that. And we just, again, we applaud Dimitri on tonight for jumping in tonight, taking time out of his schedule to empower us, to uplift us, and to give us that boost as we begin to develop a better us. And then when we work on us, we can actually develop better relationships with others. So continue to chime in. Again, the next Zoom is at 7. The next Facebook will be at 7 o'clock. And that will be, again, Are You in Shape with LaShonda Briggs. That's talking about the career aspect, but not just the career aspect, as a leader altogether. And all of us in our own individual ways are leaders. So never think because you don't run a business or you don't have a position in church or you don't have a position at work, don't think that you're not a leader within yourself. And so chime in at 7. Please go ahead and share our post because we want to touch as many people as possible. Then on Saturday, for all of the seniors, for all those who are not just technically savvy, we are going to have some empowerment tools there where we're going to drop some nuggets talking about how to use your phone, how to download apps, how to maneuver through Google Meet, Zoom, things of that nature. Also, how to look out for scams that are coming across your email, your phone, calling you. We want to make sure that you're empowered that way as well. And then, as Dimitri said, he has 2 more sessions this month. So always go to our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our LinkedIn page. Within about a day or so, these videos will actually be available on our YouTube page as well. You can always search Free2Prayz Solutions and it will come right up. As always, feel free to email us, f2psolutions@gmail.com. Our phone number is 410-774-6170. And as always, just reach out to us. Our Facebook is reconstructing, but it'll be back up in a couple of weeks. But until then, feel free to send us a message here on Facebook, and we'll certainly be able to get back to you. We love you. We appreciate you. Those of you that drop questions after we finish, Dimitri will look at those questions and he'll drop some answers to you once we get off of this live. Have a great one. Thank you again for just being with us on tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at 7. Take care, guys.